It is always about the gap between the experience and the experiencer. And that gap gets bigger, bigger, bigger. You again and again and again see that this is part of one whole. Then a new vritti, new approach to our observation and our actions comes through. It's not that this glass, the space in it, is unique from the space in this. If you take the glass away, there's no two. Okay. So again, I was just asking if everybody had a chance to do the homework, even if it was for a day or for some amount of time, if not the whole week. And what was the homework? Looking to see if we use our senses just as a faculty, eyes just to see versus seeing and then grabbing behind it. So what exactly does that mean? Because there might be some new people who were not there yesterday or listening to it without having heard yesterday. So Harsh, how would you describe what we're discussing? Using faculties for purpose versus grabbing.
So it's, how would I describe it? It's basically indulging, really, is the way I think about it, right? So I was realizing more and more this week that, I'm tending to grab even after I'm full, right? So I've had enough to sustain myself, but then I'm going over, so that tendency of grabbing was happening, right? So that's what came up for me this week.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anybody else? What was your experience? Did you do? Yes, Antonia.
I thought mine would be food as well, but actually it was hearing, especially words. I noticed how much I remember conversations, or how much I really grab what someone said or something I should say. It's always, not always, but related to hearing something. And I noticed that I really like to put something to hear, like audiobook, music. So I did that exercise of not engaging that much. Well, not engaging in audiobook and music for the past week, but I noticed these things with words.
Anybody else? Vishnu, you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah. I realized that I will take more, thinking that it is too good, and thinking that I will eat all of it. And then when I take one bite, I thought, oh my God, what I did. Now I'll have a repent that how will I give it back to someone so that I don't have the guilt that I took such a good food and then I'm throwing it away. Yeah, like repentance is there. Like, oh, should I throw it or should I eat it? But I won't like to eat it more.
I understand. Kushpinder, you have your hand up.
I chose the sense of sight for my experiment for the week. And I noticed that with few things, I did not have any craving or any aversion, but with few things, I had very strong feelings. Like when I would see, I would immediately, I'm a little OCD for cleanliness. So seeing unclean things, I realized that when I see, I grab it. And there's an aversion. Other than that, I also had few things I would see and then I would be like, oh, I should read this. Oh, I should look into it more. And that made me realize how this sight, how it's both full of aversion and craving. I cannot be in the center for many things that I see. It's quite fascinating to me.
I mean, it's an interesting experiment because we know, we say it 1,000 times, our senses run the mind, right? The mind has become a slave to the senses. It's supposed to be the servant to the mind, but it's the other way around, isn't it? We have heard this somewhere, I don't know exactly where, but how the master has become a servant. The mind, which is supposed to be served by the senses, actually it's the other way. The master is the servant. The senses want to do something and the mind goes and does it. In that sense, right? So, and the experiment was really to see, do you just look and move on, or do you look and then say, I want it, I don't want it, it's good, it's bad, You listen, it's okay to listen, but in listening, does it start to generate a whole stream of dialogue, push and pull, or is it, I heard it, you might ponder upon it, you might contemplate on it, but it's not sticky, right? It's not sticky. That's what we're discussing. And it's such a simple thing. Remember, Lord Krishna, in chapter 4, I forgot exactly at what verse, is offering the conversation of yajna. I think verse 18 spoke about the master yajna, if you want. Today we might call it a puja or an offering, as we say, but in those days they would have called it a yajna, where there is fire, which is the element, metaphorically, which burns and purifies and rejuvenates and renews. Correct? That's what verse 18 said. And then after that, he goes on to describe different types of yajnas. Remember that the Bhagavad Gita is what? A moksha shastra. It is a guide for liberation, ultimate freedom. Of course, we can do many of these things because, I'm watching my sense of taste because I want to lose weight. But then that is not a yajna, right? Then it is not about purifying the mind. I'm listening to this so that I become a better leader, Well, the gain is something material. And of course, in the world today, so many leadership principles and success principles are used from the Bhagavad Gita, right? Many of you know that. So many are used, and it can serve a purpose for that. But we're, for our discussion purposes, looking at it from all the different sides, but remembering that it's the journey for sustained, lasting happiness, if you want, for freedom. And at least for me, my week was, I'm aware of it, I've done this exercise before, I just had said it in a very different way last week. When I said how we invite touch, I think that's how I said it, We look, but we're actually touching. Because the moment you see someone walking in front of you, and then your eye follows them, you're touching. It's a distance touch, but you're touching, and you're generating, I like, I don't like. There's a dialogue that's happening. So you've actually created some degree of impression. That is what we were discussing, if you recall, correct? I talked about the perfume, I think, example. You get all dressed up, you spray perfume, you walk. Are you dressing? Because Gurudev says it so many times. See, I like beautiful things, just don't be caught in it. I like it, I see you all look so beautiful. But if you are caught in it, anyway, you do not see what you wear, how you look. You do it for others. Now, for others as a way of offering, the divine for the life that is in front of me, I do this so people are happy and calm versus being dirty and whatever. You see? Perfume, you don't smell it anymore. He talks about the perfume factory and how people there don't smell it anymore. But you're doing it so others, and when they smell something wonderful, we know. What does the sense of smell say? And then you're inviting touch. Hey, come touch me from a distance. Because you can't touch everybody, but you can look, you can smell. You understand what I'm saying? Yes? So, it was very interesting to really realize how for granted we take this very simple sentence that when the senses are busy, the mind is busy. And when the mind is busy, we lose our peace, we lose our connection to our higher self, that joy, that love. And then there is this dependency that we think the object, the person, the place, or the situation is making us happy. Versus when the senses are internalized or quiet, not just busy, then the mind gets settled down, which then allows something beautiful to flower forward. And as many times as we've heard it, it somehow was a certain type of revelation. I don't know, did any of the others who haven't shared yet, did you notice that? It's a good exercise, really, just rotate. Pick a sense and rotate. And you may start saying eyes, sense of sight, and you notice that the awareness goes to something else, because I did notice after the third day it would switch. I picked sight and it would switch, and I would become aware of the ear, or become aware of the, some other taste. A taste or some other sense. Okay? Anybody else? All right. Let's go. Piku, you want to share?
The senses going to touch was obvious, but the inviting touch, I don't know, I was not able to accept that the senses were doing that. So that was a harder exercise, I think, than
Well, the mind is doing that, right? The eyes just open, take in the light and give the message. But the impressions underneath, think about it, Almost everything we do is for another. And if we want them to appreciate it, or if we want them to like it, or if we want them to acknowledge it at some level, what are we doing? Inviting, right? What I called a touch. It just came out that way that time, but it's a very clear way to say, okay, wait a second, what am I doing with my senses, or what am I doing with my mind? Not as a judgment, it's just curiosity, play, And really, Lord Krishna describes, I think, 12 techniques. What are the techniques for? Again, man, buddhi, ahankar, purification. Yes, awareness increases. The moment you do that, you see what happens. You don't use the sense. There's a gap that's created between the object, the sense, and you. How many had this experience? For me, it was very clear. So then that's purification. That's observing. That's being conscious. So that is what we're talking about. We're not judging it at any level. What we're doing is noticing, my awareness increases, my awareness goes inward. There's a gap between the object, the sense, and me. The experience of the object that arises and me. There's a gap. That means you've become aware, conscious. No? Yeah. Okay. So we're discussing chapter 4, Yoga of Action, and looking at how we can spiritualize our actions so that we move towards this goal, this direction of ultimate freedom or lasting happiness, right? Everything we do in life is for fulfillment. Whatever actions, desires, whatever we're doing is for some type of, we can say, happiness or fulfillment. But what do we find? Our hands are left empty. A desire gets fulfilled, 10 more arise. And then we're caught back in the frustration of going and trying to achieve, and it doesn't get fulfilled. We're caught in the same web, frustration. Correct? So, at verse 18, Lord Krishna spoke about practice of yajna as a way to spiritualize our daily life, because that has to happen. We have to eat, we have to work, we have to anything you think of, drive, take care of children, life, talk to people, it all has to be done. But what is he saying? When you do it as a sense of offering to the divine, remember he has gone through the knowledge, everything is me. The fire, the ladle, the ghee, the kund, everything, there is what? God alone. God is, everything is not. So then what do we do? We offer everything. So I already said to you earlier, if you decide, all right, with my eyes, I'm learning not to grab, It's just the function. The sense is, I'm disciplining the sense of either taste or eyes or whatever. And if you're doing it, oh, I'm watching my food. Why? Because I want to lose weight, because I want to fit into size 2. Well, then it's no longer yagya. It has its value, right? If you give to charity, that was one of the other things that was described. Remember, purifying wealth? Do you recall that? Okay, you give to charity. You want a tax write-off versus, oh, these are also part of that one. One has a benefit. It's also good you're giving. It's merits. But it's different from giving because Guruji doesn't give us support because, oh, you poor thing, you need my help. It's not like that. No, he sees the divine within him and within all that there is. And so when we come, even if it's just an idea, there was also the gulab jamun example of restraining the senses, where you eat, but you pause to notice that the source of that joy, of that value, of that fulfillment is within you. It's not in the object. So he has been describing many different ways in which we can purify our action. What does it do? I already told you. It creates a gap between the object, the experience, and the awareness, yourself. Correct? Even if it's for a split second, there's a gap, and maybe you did it only a few times, but if you were to continue that practice consistently, you would see that sense would no longer run you. Right now, our sense is running us. It is supposed to serve us, but it has become the master. For some it's food, for some it's eyes, for some it's listening, for some it's all of it. Who knows? Touch. Yes? All right. So, Mala, do you recall where we left off? What verse?
28 we finished, Didi.
Okay. So let's start with 29. Ah, yes, 29. It's a long verse.
अपाने जुग्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेऽप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञशिपितकल्मषाः.
Other yogis offer the act of exhalation into that of inhalation. Even so, others the act of inhalation into that of exhalation. There are still others given to the practice of pranayama, breath control, who, having regulated their diet and controlled the process of exhalation and inhalation both, pour their vital airs into the vital airs themselves. All these have their sins consumed away by sacrifice and understand the meaning of sacrificial worship. This we are quite familiar with, no? Observing the breath, doing the pranayama, doing the kriya. You clearly know through the breath what happens? The mind steps away and it settles down. It comes into the present moment. It's not caught up in yesterday, tomorrow in the same way. No? Sudarshan Kriya, Pranayam, Vastrika. In the advanced course, as we observe the breath, we observe the in-breath going into the out-breath going into the in-breath. So when it says sins, we've discussed this again and again. What are we talking about? What is sin? Identifying oneself to that which is changing. Not being conscious of the fact of our ultimate reality. It's not sin like, good and bad in the sense that we sometimes understand it. You do remember that, right? We have discussed this and I just want to remind you. Okay? Go ahead.
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम् नायं लोकोऽस्त्य यज्ञस्य kutonya kuru sattama.
Arjuna, yogis who enjoy the nectar that has been left over after the performance of a sacrifice attain the eternal Brahma. It becomes prasad. The moment you offer it, what happens? It's a prasad. And if you enjoy prasad, that's a different conversation than, oh, I want this. If you notice, when you eat prasad, doesn't matter what it is, you eat it with sacredness, with honor. There is a natural gap in it. You're not lost in it. Correct? It doesn't matter what it is. We eat it with a certain sense of honor, a certain sense of sacredness, a certain value to it. And we'll often even comment, people will say, oh my God, it tastes different. I don't know what it is about the halwa prasad. It comes out so differently because we don't taste the food, isn't it? Now you see how it makes sense because you're offering it. If you've tasted it, what have you done? Technically speaking, you've attached, you've put your hand into it. No, of course there is that beautiful story of Shibri, how do you say? Shabri, right? You know, she has heard, for those of you who don't know, most of you, at least from India, would know this story. Ram, Lakshman and Sita are in the forest. They've been exiled. It was part of to get the younger brother by the mother to become the king. You know. Anyway, and she's heard this. She has a little cottage. This lady, old lady, lives in the woods, and she's heard that Ram is in the forest. And she knows he's not just a prince, he's not just a king to be, but he is more than that. This is a divine being walking the forest, and she's praying, someday he will come, someday he will come. So she's collecting, you know, different flowers and cleaning the kutir, her little cottage, every day because she doesn't know when he'll show up. Notice how the actions are being purified. She's doing it for the Lord to come. She's sweeping up the cottage every day. She goes to get water, fresh water, not the one that's from what, because if he comes, she wants to offer the very best. And so she sees these board, like cherries, little cherries, you know, in the woods. And she plucks them, but they could be sour also. So she doesn't know what to do. So what does she do? She plucks each cherry, she takes a bite, and those that are sweet, she keeps to offer, and those that are sour, she throws away. See how in that intention, it's not, I want to taste it to see if it's good for me. I don't want to, you know, the Lord would love it. I'm offering this to the divine. So she is tasting it and tossing the sour ones and keeping the sweet ones. And eventually, Ram and Lakshman, Sita, they do go to the cottage. They arrive and she's overjoyed. And, you know, this has happened. I remember this thing where Gurudev went to someone's home. They've been waiting. And they're sitting on the floor. Gurudev is there. Oh my God. And they're peeling a tangerine to give to Guruji. So they're peeling the tangerine, giving the peel in his hand and eating. This is so overjoyed. They're so excited, right? So like this, Shabri, she brings out the basket of cherries for the Lord. And Lakshman, which you know represents the intellect. See, this is again, it's the quality of the purity of the intellect. Man, buddhi, ahankar, mind, intellect, and ego. So Lakshman, he does what he's supposed to do for his Leela and says, how can you offer eaten food? You wouldn't do it to a guest, and now you're going to give it to Lord Ram. You know, he's a little bent out of shape about it. And Ram Bhagwan does what? Happily eats all the cherries without thinking about it. It's the best cherries ever, and Lakshman is stunned. But this is how the buddhi starts to go quiet. It recognizes the love, the devotion behind the action. Are you getting it? So just look, when we have a plate of food, if you just say, Govinda, we talked about this also, I offer this to you. Just that intention has already turned it into a prasad. You will not overeat. You will not overserve. You've given something, you will eat, and then you will pause, because you're not going to make a pile of something and you're going to make it look pretty, isn't it? There's like I say, I don't like when those sectional plates where the food gets all mixed with the other. I can't stand it. When you go to the ashram, there's those divided platters, and you put something in one and another thing, and then it mixes up. No, you will not serve to the Lord like that. You'll become more mindful, if nothing else. Mindful means there's a gap. Otherwise, the food hasn't even been fully served, and you start with the thing that's on the plate already. Haven't you seen like little teenagers, who have zero control over their hand or their taste, and you just start, yummy, and the mother, wait till I put it in the plate. No? So just the act of remembering this I offer this to the Lord changes everything. Yeah? Go ahead, Mala.
एवं बहुविधा यज्ञा वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे.
Many such forms of sacrifice have been set forth in detail in the Vedas. Know them all as involving the action of mind, senses, and body. Thus, knowing the truth about them, you shall be freed from the bondage of action through their performance. Again, it's the gap, it's the awareness, offering it. That reminder alone changes the merits and the demerits of our actions. Why does it change it? You purify man, buddhi, ahankar. It's hard to latch on, grab on when there's a gap. It's hard to become, it's mine. You've just offered it. Where is it yours? See? And the mind, the intellect, it trains into another groove. It starts to see life over time in a different way. Just like over time we started to learn me and mine and I. It was not innate to us. We learned it over time. No, that's mine. Share with your sister. I don't want to. No, Daddy brought it for both of you. No, Daddy bought it for me. It's my birthday. It's for me only. Do you notice how much training we have gone into finding very subtle ways to compartmentalize what is filled with greater sense of belonging? We don't fight and say it's my air. Until you get on a flight, then you start to say, can you stop breathing on me? Then you suddenly fight for air also. You have to pause and think about this very first chapter, the whole challenge of me and mine, and look and see how it shows up in the ways that you least expected. Just really think about it. You say, okay, 2 children, it's obvious. Oh no, it's my birthday, Daddy, it's my present. Isn't it my present? Now the parents aren't going to say, yes, Piku, it's just yours. Are they going to say that? No, see, but you can share. He shares with you, you share with him. We are family. Notice how we then try to expand from me and mine to you and ours. But we don't do it for ourselves in the same way. Everything is compartmentalized. And the moment you again and again and again see that this is part of one whole, then a new vritti, new approach to our observation and our actions comes through. Innocent more. Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, here. It's so simple, but it's really quite beautiful, isn't it? When you really hear it, it's just like so lovely. Especially if you start to break it down, you have 50 shoes. Can I borrow your shoes? Somebody has, I don't know. The person asking has a very definite sense of me and mine, and the person who may or may not give it has a very definite sense of me and mine. No? Oh, you didn't even give it back. I'm not saying don't get it back. I'm not saying open up your bank account. I'm not saying leave the keys of your house outside. I'm saying notice it's all a gift to you. So offer it, be in gratitude for that which made it possible for you. Buddhi, if you're very smart and you run a business or you go to work and you do super well, where did that buddhi come from? No? Your effort, you're putting in. But you can't help but put in effort. Action is inherent. So even your action, the effort, the energy behind the action belongs to who? You see, you forgot, because remember I told you the act of pouring is also Brahman. Do you remember me telling you that two sessions ago, I think? The ghee, yes, okay, we say is divine. The ladle is, the Agni is, the kundi is, the fire is. But the act of pouring, the act of burning, the action is also Brahman. We cannot help but act. We cannot just sit there. You'll sit for a few minutes. I'll meditate. You are now going to go do something. Okay, I'm just going to sit here. I'll just fix that and then come back. It's inherent. So even that doesn't belong to us. But only when you start to share, when you start to see the magnanimous, the interconnectedness, the interdependence of life, then the heart becomes malleable, it becomes big, it becomes gentle, and then there's force and energy and power behind it. I don't mean force as in forcing, but power, force, behind our words, our actions, our laughter. We don't cry fully, we don't laugh fully, because everything is compartmentalized. It's so beautiful, and he gave 12 techniques, different ways to offer. There was tapas, austerity, remember, fasting and or limiting, charity, all these different things. You can go back if you want and review those from 18 to whatever, and you'll see what the different yagya or sadhana is, if we want to look at it like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Shreyan dravyamaya yajnyan jnana yajna parantapa sarvam karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate.
Arjuna, sacrifice through knowledge is superior to sacrifice performed with material things. This we know, right? We know this very clearly. For all actions, without exceptions, culminate in knowledge, O son of Kunti. All actions culminate in knowledge. What does that mean? To me, it has a lot of layers to it, but one of the interesting things is everything is leading towards the higher, greater goal and good. We start to judge our actions. We like them, we don't like them. This is good, this is bad, Everything gets divided. But no, action in its pure form is just leading you, when you have awareness, to where? To the highest. Okay, let's do one more.
Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninastattvadarshinaha.
Understand the true nature of that knowledge by approaching seers of truth. If you prostrate at their feet, render them service, and question them with an open and guileless heart, those wise seers of truth will instruct you in that knowledge. Well, we're very fortunate, no, in terms of seers and asking questions, but also we don't always ask. Sometimes our questions are curiosity. They're not for the... This is Moksha Shastra. It is wisdom to take us to the ultimate. Again and again we have to remember that. It is not a wiki. You know, you have a question and then you call on the seer to say, hey, tell me about this fact and what is that like? Okay, it's fine, it's curiosity, it's okay, but are there aliens? I'm not sure how that's going to take you towards this goal. Maybe it's interesting, maybe you're curious, but actually, and I'm never saying do or don't do. I'm just simply saying we need to become more and more and more aware. We don't even realize that we're doing that. If you've ever sat next to me while Gurudev's talking and then somebody, do you notice me do? I used to, now I've become enlightened. I'm patient more and I get it. You know, we're all in our own ways still growing. I'm growing, they're growing, we're all growing. Not growing, but, you know, ungrowing, I should say. Letting go of our conditioning. But we don't always ask questions that are relevant to our own place where we are. How many questions are related to hypotheticals? What do we do if? How do we do if? Of course, some portion of it is directly related, but many questions are, oh, what happens after death? What happens after? How do you live? What to do? Where do... These questions are very rare. Yes? Is that not your experience? They're very rare. Even you watch the reels sometimes, I often think like, you know, would we go to Lord Krishna? I mean, I haven't yet heard Arjun ask a question about how do I manage, you know, Draupadi? She's a little difficult. Have you heard that question yet? No. He's not asking, you know, I don't know what to do about my brother. You know, my older brother, he's always right and I'm kind of fed up with having to follow him all the time. All kinds of things must have gone on. He's human like us. But every question is leading and he's moving towards the one goal. I do not want to fight. Lord Krishna, you say everything is divine. They're already dead. You have never been born. They have never been born. You are, you know, truth, existence, non-changing bliss. Oh, he keeps moving in that direction. Isn't it? Not once, you know, the year that Draupadi comes to my place, I like it, I'm happy, you know, I get good food and she's there and I have company, but oh my God, she drives me crazy. What do? She thinks I don't talk to her enough. And ever since the incident in the court, she's a handful. She keeps walking around with her hair flying all over the place and I just don't know what to do with her. You don't hear these questions ever. I don't suggest that we don't ask these questions. I'm saying we want to be clear. What is the seer of truth for? He's already said the mind, it's just a web. No, it's filled. So then we have to start to apply some of that. Not, help me, I don't feel good, get me out of that. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Okay, keep it in context because otherwise, oh, Didi said, don't ask this question and what are we supposed to do? We are having a hard time. I'm just talking for one goal right now, which is Moksha Shastra. Then the seer of truth, what questions do we ask? And even when we ask questions on family or friends or career and all of those things, if you follow this, then you would go in a different tone, you know? Gurudev, I have this one child or business or whatever, that I have to take care of, that is there, that is your gift that I offer back. What can I do better? Where does our mind go? How does it approach? It approaches with me in mind, or this sense that this is something that has been offered to me by the divine. I am a temporary custodian. Not easy, don't get me wrong, but we're here to explore a wider lens on everything in our life. No? You look all so stoic. Is this rubbing you the wrong way, this conversation? No. It's very important. Look how you must ask the question. Open and guileless heart. Innocent. Sometimes our questions we already have an answer to, or we want a validation for our question. We read something somewhere and we heard some other person say something, and so now we want, please tell me this, fix it. Oh, just see, somebody just chatted. In the novel Instant Karma, The Day Happened, there's a Yama. When he's asked meaningless questions, he answers thusly, you are asking the wrong question, my friend. It's important to ask a useful question if we wish to receive a useful answer. Yes. I think when it's really from the heart, as described, then the answer is poured through. We say every particle, under every electron, atom, there is what? Under, above, in the divine, the intelligence. Sat, Chit, Anand. Consciousness is there. Truth is there. All knowledge, all knowingness is there. It's in front of us. It's in us. We are it. What gets in our way is when we get stuck in rituals. It's the prior verse. No? Performed with material things versus performed with knowledge, which is superior. Knowledge, actions with knowledge, wisdom is superior to rituals, is what that verse is saying. When you offer things with material things, that's very different from just this sense, I offer this in the fire of knowledge. Does not belong to me. Awareness, knowledge. Clear? Yes? I forgot I was going somewhere, but I forgot it when I went into the previous verse. What was I saying before? Just before I got there? Oh, so if you ask the question with that purity of heart, innocence, right? Recognizing everything is divine, you immediately get the answer. And we have an experience of this whenever we teach. When you're in service, you're not in the mode of trying to figure anything out. You're there open, tapped into a wider, bigger source. Correct? Then that response just comes to you. As the question arises, the response flows through. Especially when you're connected to one who is an example of the scriptures. Yeah? Go ahead.
यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि.
Arjuna, when you have achieved enlightenment, ignorance will delude you no more. In the light of that knowledge, you will see the entire creation first within your own self, and then in me. It's amazing. Look. So, 3 steps. Somebody, nobody, everybody. And in the broad sense, we break it down. Remember, I had told you, when we start out journey, everything is lumped together. I'm this body and my thoughts and my emotions, and it's all me. My things are me, my family is me, what I think is me, my beliefs are me, my body is me, me. There is one, me, right? And what's mine is me. And then we enter the inner realm. We start to look at something more. Well, wait a second. My body, when I was born to now, yes, it has grown, but something in me feels as if it has not changed or grown or at all. So then we start to ask this question. Or you have your first experience of meditation or Sudarshan Kriya, or just one day you're sitting under the sky, you see a sunset, or you're just looking out, the mind is drifting, and suddenly you have this awareness, wait a minute, there's something more. You have some connection to something higher. So then we move from everything lumped as one, me, to, oh, there is me, but then there's also this body. Duplicity. There was multiplicity, but it was all lumped together. Me and myself and my thoughts. And then you start to say, oh, the body is there, the thoughts are there. If I know there's thoughts, if I know there's emotions, there's also me. There's something separate from that also. Initially, what happens? What is this verse saying? You will see all as yourself. Initially, you will see everything is me. Then comes the next step, and me and all is Paramatma. Krishna Bhagwan is now speaking as Paramatma, not the individuated self, capital S, but as the cosmic self. Remember I told you there's Advaita and then there's non-dual philosophy. Do you remember that discussion we had some 3 sessions maybe ago, where I said, look how brilliant this is. This is still non-dual. Me and God, that's 2. But then God and I, there's only 1. That's the ultimate, Advaita Vedanta. No 2. So beautiful. First, you will see everything as yourself, and then you will see it all in me. They call it oversoul. I'm saying the cosmic self, Paramatma. You also have to remember, I don't know if we've talked about this here or if it was in some other knowledge, it's not that there's so many souls or Atmans. You know, Rajshree doesn't have her own Atma, and Girish doesn't have his own, and Venkat doesn't have his own, and Vibha doesn't have her own, and Bhavna doesn't have her own. It's not that there are so many Atmas. You're not thinking that, are you? There's only one. It's all one. Like if you have 10 glasses open, you know, instead of upside down, right side up, it's not that this glass, the space in it is unique from the space in this. If you take the glass away, there's no 2. It's only when you put the vessel in there it appears that way. Do you see what I'm saying to you?
It's like the ocean, no, Didi? Like waves in the ocean. There's
Yes,
no
but
independent oceans.
there's no independent oceans, but there appears to be independent waves, correct? You can say there's one wave, one is larger, one is smaller, one is fluffier, one is getting more fluffy. You understand? All this, they are there. Jiva is mind, impressions, individual mind, you know, which makes Mala, the persona, different from Piku or Rajshree or Malvika or Daya. But the Atman, there is no difference between Atman and Paramatma. If I put millions of vessels, 8 billion vessels, and I don't know how many trees, and I don't know how many animals and whatever, the space is not divided. You cannot divide space. Remember, in chapter 2, it cannot be divided. Ever. So it's not that a little piece of God is in you. That's not like that. I mean, it's a little mind-blowing, right? It's not like a little piece of God and a little piece of that, and when Antonia gets liberated, that little piece of God will merge into the big piece of God. It's not like that. If you take away the vessels, just look, okay, my hands are like two vessels. And you can see now there's two in terms of the space in the vessels. But if you take that away, it's just one. And so that's what Lord Krishna is saying. First, you will see you, all is you, and then you will see that you are it. You will see in me, you are it. You are the universe, not a piece of the universe. Imagine, that's just chapter 4, and this is already the knowledge. He got it in chapter 2, and now look at, he's back again to this, again and again and again, We come back to this immenseness of who we are, and just knowing that, just for a bleep of a moment, something lightens up. It is always about the gap between the experience and the experiencer. And that gap gets bigger, bigger, bigger. You notice it in your part 2 courses. The first day, everything is like that. And then slowly awareness comes, and then the sensations come and go. And thoughts come and trickle and go. And emotions come and trickle and go. And then again you get caught and you go, I'm just having emotions. And then no, and then you watch. Doesn't that happen? Yes or no? So we just completed which verse? 34?
35, Didi.
35. Okay, we'll stop here. Any thoughts, questions, anything? Comments?
May I speak?
Please, Vera.
I get it that we are part of the same Atma and everything. Then what is this we talk about moksha for, that we are working, I'm working, or whoever is working towards moksha at this point? Because the Paramatma is already moksha.
That's right.
So then why am I working so hard towards moksha? So it's a little...
No, it's a very good question. The reason is because we do not see ourselves as the space. We see ourselves as the vessel. If your identity, if your sense of self is I am this space, that's why I said unlearning. There's nothing to learn. It's to be remembered. Oh, I am not this cup made out of clay. I am the space in and around and in the clay also. Even the clay is filled with space. It's a remembrance. And the moment you remember it, in that moment you are free. The only problem is because of our vasanas, our impression, identity, I am this body. I am Vera. This is my children. This is my home. This is my cell phone. I do this. I do not do this. I like this. We have all of that story about our identity. We don't walk around saying, I am this eternal Sat, Chit, Ananda, existence, all-knowing consciousness, and joy and bliss. We're still trying to find joy and bliss through the things that we think I am or the things that we think belong to me. But me doesn't exist, and those things also don't exist. We at least understand it. We have glimmers of experiences about it. And so then what are we doing here? Again and again and again, reminding, becoming aware. That's why we say it's not a satsang. It's not a discussion as much as it is a reminder. What is a sangha? Where you share what's already known in common. Right? It's not a debate. It's not someone is saying and we're listening. No, we're sharing, we're reminding. Oh, yes. And don't you know, so much of the knowledge we don't know, but when we hear it, something says yes. This all-knowingness that we are springs up and says yes. Wow. Right? But we have to be in this space versus the vessel. It's a very good question. And again, we come back to it. Yeah? Anybody else?
What exactly is that vessel, Didi? Is it the body, the mind, the ego, or?
All of it. It's not separate. You remember your part 1 course. We are made up of 7 layers. They are faculties. No, body is there. Body, when you were born, was 7 pounds, and it has become, whatever many pounds. Mind, when we were born, was very subtle. It was not so rigid. No, it was there. We had our if a newborn baby, when they start to eat, you give them peas versus applesauce. They had the taste and the recognition of it. How can you recognize something? Only if you have the experience in it before. Do you see? You can't, otherwise, all babies don't. The same parents, the same food. One baby spits the peas out and the other baby eats the peas. It's hard to believe, but there are children who want just vegetables. They don't want the sweet. It's so interesting, isn't it, how kids do that? We already comes, but those impressions are subtle. But we get older, they get a little stronger. I don't eat peas. I don't want peas. Look, I'm not going there. That place just drives me crazy. All it is peas and broccoli. I'm not going. No, but they would like to go. Well, you guys can go. I'm not going. Oh my God, just go. Eat the peas. Right? The vessel is what you get identified to. Look, you think of yourself as having borders between the toes and the top of the head and here. And maybe a little bit out there to some degree. This is my border. You cross in there, like, don't come into my space, okay? Sorry, I'm just telling you, don't come into my space. The more you fight for that, the more you are localized. Imagine Gurudev saying that with a mob. Just think about it for a second. If you see those big giant satsangs and he's there and there's a mob scene. Even the cops are part of the mob. The security guards are part of the mob. No? Because he sees space as in the consciousness. And so he walks through it as if he's kind of floating in air in many ways. Right? I think just pondering like we are makes us more clear, Yes? All right, we'll close our eyes for a few minutes. Let's just close our eyes. Exhale everything. Forget it. Take a long breath in. And just offer that in-breath and the out-breath. Life force, prana. It's a gift to us. We're surrounded in it. Just remember it, think about it, and with that awareness, take a breath in. And offer it back. Jai Gurudev.